Hello and welcome to Off the Shelf Reviews.
I can be as angry as 12 Angry Men.
And I'm Gary, and today we're going to review and discuss 12 Angry Men, which released in 1957, from writer Reginald Rose and director Sidney Lumet. Ian, why don't you give us the synopsis?
Well, the story follows 12 jurors who have been tasked with a case over a boy who has supposedly killed his dad. The 12 men are sat all in one room and are going over the evidence. But one of them, played by Henry Fonda, believes that actually the evidence points to somebody else. As the 12 men discuss the case, we start to realize that some of their personal feelings are starting to show through.
What made you change your vote?
He didn't change his vote. I did.
Oh, fine.
I know it. Would you like me to tell you why?
So this wasn't based on a true story, but writer Reginald Rose actually served as a juror during a manslaughter trial and subsequently got the idea, after seeing all these other jurors, to write a film or a story about it.
Yeah.
And in 1954, he had his first script, which was turned into a televised film. I think it was Studio One.
Okay.
And then a few years later, in 57, this was turned into a full feature film.
Right.
Which I think was nominated for 3 Academy Awards, but it lost out to The Bridge Over River Kwai.
Oh,
Which is kind of a shame, but since then, this film has gone on to get all of that recognition and now sits comfortably in the 5th spot on IMDb's top 250 movies.
Wow.
That's to say, this is also on Roger Ebert's best of films list.
Oh, yeah.
And is also included in the 1001 films to see before you die.
Yes.
Saying all of that should give you some idea as to how well recognized and this film actually is.
Yeah. I mean, this was the first time for me, but I was saying to Gary before I even hit play, I was going through my notes, doing my thing on Wiki as I normally do. But I didn't read the plot. I was being good, it's 2025, New Year and all that. Not going to say I'm going to stick to it, but anyway, I was going through the notes and I'm like, okay, right, let's look at some of these actors. And you're going through the names and you're looking at them and you're thinking, ooh, these are some, top class actors in their older ages that I would watch and be like, man, that guy's really good and that guy's really good. So now I'm getting to see them, back in the day when they're first younger. And the director as well, Sidney Lumet. I mean, I've always loved Failsafe.
Yeah.
I think Failsafe is just an absolute classic war movie that doesn't get enough recognition. And so this was set before.
Well, this is his feature film debut.
Yeah.
He was actually hired by Henry Fonda, who was brought on as a producer for this film. Apparently, this is Henry Fonda's only producer credit, because apparently he hated being a producer so much, he was like, I'm never doing that again. But he was the one who hired Sidney Lumet. He was like, that guy who's got extensive experience working in television and knows how to get a project done on a deadline on time.
Oh.
So he was first pick.
Yeah.
And that collaboration, that relationship, they went into 2 weeks of rehearsal time into the shooting schedule.
Wow.
And then rushed through, I think, in 21 days shooting the film. But because of all that extensive rehearsing and practicing, all in on that location, on that set, he wanted to give the actors time to be in that room to get used to it, get familiar with it, because they were going to get trapped in it.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a beautiful film. We start with that opening shot of the courthouse, and we start to go in and we see everybody just bustling around, people going to different offices, walking through the corridors, and then we slide in, we hear that judge. He's looking at the jurors and he explains the basics. He says about this case, about how this boy is being charged with his father's murder. The evidence points to them, but it's now the 12 jurors' job to go over the evidence and make that decision. And I absolutely just love that idea, the idea that we have that, where it's just like, right, we've got all this evidence, we've got all the lawyers, the prosecution and the defense doing their thing, you've got the witnesses, you've got the person who's obviously being tried, and then it's down to these 12 people, who at this time were all men, to go in and make the final decision.
Yeah. Now, you think, like most movies, the big climax, the big ending, what it's all been coming down to is the verdict, is the trial.
Exactly.
This film goes, the trial's just finished, already. And then to just go, okay, now we're going to have these 12 people in one room for the duration of the rest of the film.
Yeah.
This film is committing so many, like, script writer sins
Really?
of things that you just shouldn't do when you write a movie. Like, number one being, don't have too many talking heads.
Oh, no, you got
This film just goes, how about talking heads for the entire film?
Yeah, Howard Hawks did that all the time. I love it.
True. Okay, and then another one is to not introduce too many characters all at once.
No.
This film goes, here's 12 of them at once.
Feast that did that. That was brilliant.
Yeah, it's true. But, okay, I'm just saying these are general rules.
Well, okay, right, sorry.
And another one is to not have characters have similar names because it gets confusing. How about we just call them Juror 2 through 12?
Yeah.
Yeah, because that won't get confusing. So these are just some of the things that like you generally don't do when you're writing a script, and this film just went to hell with that.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how well, I mean, this script is an art form into of itself. On top of that, the filmmaking is also incredible because it's nearly a 7-minute take from when we have the title on screen. We've just had the only shot of the defendant, the boy, as it fades into the back room with the title and the opening credits. That shot's nearly 7 minutes long as it goes over to the window as they try to open the windows, establishing how hot it is. It's the hottest day of the year. They're all sweating. The camera just keeps moving from one person to another person, and you don't even notice the edits. The first edit comes when they call over Henry Fonda from the window, and that's when they make their first vote. And so it's all in real time. And so you are like an outsider in that back room with them in real time, then going over what preceded the scene.
Well, it's like the old saying, isn't it? You're the fly on the wall.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just, like Gary said, it's absolutely beautiful. Just the little introductions each one of them gives each other, like, it's little pleasantries, little hellos. They don't know each other. They don't know each other from Jack or whatever. But here they are now having to sit in this room and decide the fate of this boy. And it's kind of hammered home even worse that this boy will be sent to the
electric chair.
The electric chair. You know, it's a death sentence because he killed his dad. And you just sit there and you just start to, you know, pick out that as they get their votes ready, you know, and it goes round guilty, 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 guilty. It's just very easy for these guys just to say all guilty and then just walk out the room. Person goes, gets put in the electric chair, and that's it. It's over and done with. It's a Tuesday, whatever. But Henry Fonda has that look in his eye, and it's amazing. It's not like the look in his eye from Once Upon a Time in the West,
Right.
But it's the same kind of glint. It's where like he's thinking, you know, he's really thinking about himself or his character or who he is or whatever or what this character does. But it's the way he just turns around and just says, I don't know, not guilty. And they all start to get really annoyed.
Well, yeah, that's because we've already established that some of them really want to get to a ball game.
Yeah.
Some of them really just don't want to be there and just want to be anywhere else because it's so hot.
Well, some of them are really happy to be there because they're just a garage owner and it's right, they'd actually be out of work and here than actually back at work. So, yeah, let's see if we can go for as long as we can and maybe we can get some food. You know, they're all... Before Henry Fonda starts to point out all the evidence, they're all just actually thinking about themselves. They're not thinking about the juror.
That's right.
You know,
the defendant.
The defendant,
Yeah.
sorry, yeah. They're just thinking, you know, like I said, I want to go to the ball game. I want to eat. But then Henry Fonda starts picking out and goes, well, you know, hold on a minute. I'm not sure about this case.
Well, yeah, their job is to deliberate whether there's any reasonable doubt. And if there is a single shred of reasonable doubt, you can vote guilty.
But it's also Henry Fonda, like you said, he points out the problems they've all got. He's like, look, this kid's going to die if we say all guilty. And we have to be 110% sure. When they bring that knife in, I've got to point out this knife. Now, I don't think we do this nowadays. I don't think the jurors can just go and get a murder weapon, you know, and bring it in and go, look, this is the knife he used. It's got blood on it, and just stick it in the table. I'm like, ooh.
Well, I mean, it works dramatically for the film, but yeah, I imagine they would still be able to see evidence, but maybe not like play with it like they do.
But it's the way as well that Henry Fonda, he's leading the opposite side and he's got nobody on his side at this point, but he pulls out an exact knife from his pocket and goes, look what I bought last night from a shop just round the corner. And it's a really pinnacle point of the story.
Because he had already riled them up to the point where they were all adamant that there was no way there could be a duplicate or replica knife because the store owner had never seen anything like it. And he was like, well, 2 blocks from where the murder happened, I went to a random store and brought this knife. So just goes to show they're everywhere. You just think that because that's all you know.
Yeah.
And he just showed them that there was something else. And then, boom, a little bit of doubt. A little bit of doubt into the case. And as the film went on, I was like, you know what? This film is more really of a deconstruction as to how awful the defense lawyer was. I was like, was that lawyer asleep? Because all the evidence that comes up.
But that's probably the point as well, is that, we're always saying that some lawyers are really corrupt.
They actually had that conversation in this film and just say he was probably a court-appointed lawyer who saw no glamour. There was nothing to win in defending this boy who was pretty much written off as guilty from the get-go.
Exactly. And it's the mentality and the prejudices of the time in 1950s, 1957, whatever, of, he's an 18-year-old, he's a delinquent, he's hanging around with knives.
He was potentially, I think he's a Puerto Rican.
A Puerto Rican as well. So he's not even American, and so literally
all those,
everything.
All you said, all those prejudices and the bigotry and the racism and all that starts to...
Everything is
there's hints of it in some of the
kid.
Characters.
Oh, yes.
And because they are bringing in their own biases of hatred and racism towards the defendant, they've already voted guilty because of their... And those sort of layers are there from the get-go, but really come out towards the end when the conversations get really more heated and they get angry. And of course it is a boiling pot.
Let me ask you this. Do you really think the boy'd shout out a thing like that so the whole neighborhood could hear him? I don't think so. He's much too bright for that.
Bright? He's a common ignorant slob. He don't even speak good English.
I love the old man, played by Joseph Sweeney. I mean, we'll find out his name's McCardle, but, he's just another juror. And he opts on the second vote to stand with Henry Fonda because actually he does fully believe that there's a problem with this case. And on top of that, you've got the kind of bad dad character who's just complaining that kids these days, they don't have no respect and they don't understand and he deserves to go to prison. And this old man character turns around and goes, whoa, a minute. And I love that Joseph Sweeney's playing it like he's got experience to say, hold on.
I just want to go back before that because there's a really great sequence where after they had their first vote, and obviously it was 11-1. Then they had the whole knife showcase moment. And then they did a secret vote.
Oh, yes,
And I love how it was... I love the camera work as we just watch these notes getting passed around the table into a pile. And I love how they start accusing somebody else. And it's the old man who's center of the frame at the back. He's like, actually, it was me. And then they all turn to him and they're like, why? And it's all those questions. The script is really sharp and the comebacks are very witty. And a lot of the characters will say something and then they'll defeat themselves, like a self-defeating argument moment later on where they don't even realize they've contradicted what they've already said, and it all builds into their verdict come the end.
Mr. Foreman, I'd like to change my vote to not guilty.
You what?
You heard me.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I'm sure.
I just love the way that the camera would frame one of the actors on screen while obviously they're discussing their point of why they've changed their vote or why they believe that guilty is the way to go. And you'll hear the voices coming from behind the camera, as to say, at the actor, but the actor is like looking off of the shot as well. So you're there, but you're invisible, and you're just watching this kind of argument and debate go back and forth.
It's
and
funny
like
you should say that, because like when the film starts, there's all these wide shots. There's lots of space. And like even the opening when they're all deliberating around the table, it's a wide shot. We see them all, but by the midpoint of the film, like the cameras, you're kind of sat at the table at eye level with them. And then by the end of the film, you're almost sunk down further into your chair and they are on almost extreme close-ups. And it kind of highlights that claustrophobic nature of being stuck in there as time's going on. But it also goes to show how, as an audience member, at the beginning, you don't know any of them and there's all this space. But as you get to know them, you get closer and closer and closer. And It's these little seamless like camera tricks where a character is on screen central and is about to say something, the camera just gently leans in.
Yeah.
It's like you as an audience, as a member sat there, want to hear what they have to say. So you just do a little lean in. And the camera does all that. It embodies a person, but it like a fly on the wall as well.
Yeah.
But it's the fact that it's so seamless, you don't even notice these little simple tricks.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so satisfying to see it done.
It's the details of like the heat. You know, they're talking about how hot it is, so you just feel it in them as they're sweating all the way through the sequence. You know, sequence after sequence, and especially as they start to get angry at each other, they start to get aggressive.
And they're getting annoyed that they can't get the one fan
Yeah,
to work.
yeah. Well, they do find out later on.
They just need to turn the lights on. Right.
But it's like, yeah, that beautiful moment where Henry Fonda, he starts to question like the eyewitness woman across the road, and how she says that she saw the kid kill his dad through the windows of this train as it came through, and he breaks down how long the train must be and how long it must have taken for it to actually pass over, how much noise it must be making at that point as well.
And he's trying to match it up with another witness statement of
Yeah,
the old man
of
who
the old
heard
man.
the "I'll kill you," body hit the ground,
Yeah.
and then getting to the door and seeing the suspect running down the stairs.
Yeah.
And so they start doing the timings and they start trying to work things out. And they're like, the old man said he ran to the front door. Wait a minute, didn't he have a stroke and he was like limping on one leg?
Yeah.
Let's work out the distance. Let's time it.
I love that, the breakdown from the old man juror, where he's just like, look, he came to tell his story because nobody else listens to him, so he's trying to make this big embellishment. He wants people to hang on his word. So yes, he's going to explain that he saw the killer and he saw this kid, and it just...
Well, it says, because he says that he the old man noticed in the other old man that something obviously no one else did.
Yeah.
And that was because I think he saw something of himself
in
that
there.
person.
Yes.
Which is how he was able to understand his motives. That he didn't see the kid running down the stairs, but this is his moment. Spotlight's on him. He's on the news. He's at the court. He's getting sworn in and everything. So it's another, again, like character moment, which is so good.
Yeah.
But it's also the same old guy, Joseph Sweeney, juror 9, who's pointing it to the other guy who doesn't sweat.
Yeah.
And he's just saying, look, why do you keep doing that with your nose? Oh, you wear glasses. The lady who was the witness who looked and saw the murder through a moving train also was doing this, and she didn't wear glasses at the courthouse. Maybe she was doing it so she'd look prettier, not wearing glasses. But at the same time, she was supposed to be in bed when she saw this happen. So again, it's breaking down all of the testimonies and all of the evidence and going, that lawyer really was shit, wasn't he? and all of this just brings more and more doubt. So the votes keep swaying more and more and more to not guilty.
Yeah, as they
until
keep
you've
making
really
more
got
votes.
like the last 3 that are just steadfast. Like, no, this evidence is irrefutable. And then it's the guy who doesn't sweat.
Right, yeah. Did you recognize where he's from?
No.
He was the old man from the Tommyknockers.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. He was really good in this.
Yeah, he was.
I mean, everyone was really good in
They
this.
were all really good.
But yeah, he's the one who's just like, it's irrefutable evidence. The fact that, like, the murder weapon fell through his pocket, and the fact that he couldn't remember what movies that he's gone to see.
He's
his
very
alibi.
adamant on the details,
Exactly, yeah. And so again, when he's confronted with trying to remember what he did yesterday, the day before, and the day before that, and he starts to get the details wrong, and a bead of sweat. I was like, it's done. He's defeated. Like, it's another boss down.
Yeah.
He's now non-guilty.
Yeah.
And so, again, it's just all of those build-ups. Like, this is all one big scene from the minute they get in here to the end credits.
It
it's
is,
like one
it
big...
is.
Tarantino would love this.
It's like a stage play. It's like literally you could just...
Well, it has been adapted into stage play.
Exactly.
This film... I mean, we talk about remakes. This film has got more than 10 remakes already.
Yeah.
It's been remade in France and in Germany and in Russia and all over the world.
Yeah.
It's still being adapted, and it's because it's still relevant.
It's just so easy. Like you said, you just have these 12 people who you don't know. They don't have names. They're not real characters, but they are relatable, real people because of the situation and the place that they are in. And like you said, each one of them sees a little bit of themselves all over the place, and as an audience member you start to see little things of yourself in each one of them as well. I mean, like Gary said, we've got the last 2 jurors who, they have to, they have to put their vote in. They're trying to go for a hung vote, but it's like Henry Fonda points out, we haven't been in here long enough to be able to do that. We have to be in here for hours, and you're sat there going, shit, yeah, we've only been here for like an hour for the movie. We still got 30 minutes to go. What's going on? And Ed Begley, who Gary pointed out was from the Dunwich Horror,
right,
back in the day. What a classic. I totally missed that. He plays the xenophobe, and wow, like he spends the majority of the movie rubbing his nose, wiping his nose, talking about how the heat's giving him a cold and things like that. But then, like as the film starts to progress, I started to think, like, is he wiping his nose because he's just looking down on people, because he's surrounded by these people that he shouldn't be, and he should be in somewhere better, and he is just fully just against anybody who's not obviously American. I'm assuming he doesn't actually come out and say it.
No.
The script of his
It's the little digs. It's like those people.
That's it. It's the little tiny digs. You just listen to him to have, like you said, deconstruct himself, defeat himself, because every single one of the other juries is listening and then starts to stand up and turn away and turn their back by just, making him confront with the idea of, you're only wanting to send this kid to die because you don't like where he's come from. The murder has nothing to do with it. You just don't want him there, and killing him off would be the easiest thing because, it would reduce his numbers. And it's just the breakdown. When he walks off and he just collapses on that table, that's it. You don't hear from him for the rest of the movie.
Yeah. It's great. It's the moment where he's on a tirade.
Yeah.
And everyone just gets up and walks away from him. It's just brilliant. It's powerful stuff.
Was it the guy who doesn't sweat just kind of looks at him and, he's like, are you listening? And the guy goes, no. And I think you should just stop talking now.
Yeah. It's that silence, that moment. That's great.
These people are dangerous. They're wild. Listen to me. Listen to me.
I have. Now sit down and don't open your mouth again.
And so now it's just down to Lee J. Cobb, Juror 3, who is still just steadfast. And he's just like, oh, you bleeding hearts. Like, it's these kids. That's what they do to you. And he just has a tirade. He has a breakdown. And he has the moment where, he's antagonized by Henry Fonda, Juror 8, who's just like, you came in here like public defender, executioner, ready to kill this kid without even thinking about it. And he dug deeper and he called him like a sadist.
He did.
And then
I'll kill you!
Exactly. And it's that moment where he caught himself saying it, and he was like, oh, yeah.
You're not really going to kill me.
A moment of doubt.
Yeah.
But it builds and it builds to the point where he does have a breakdown. And it was set up beautifully earlier, where each character's had these moments where they're just mingling, talking to somebody else, going, hey, look, this is what I do for a living. Here's a picture of blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, yeah.
And he had the moment where he was like, yeah, this is my son. I haven't seen him in 2 years. And we're like, oh, that's it.
Yeah.
Don't know what happened there.
No.
But there's a moment later on, very soon after that, where he's just on his own, just looking at the picture of his son. You're like, okay, that's important.
Yeah.
And then when he's ripping up that picture of his son, and we realize that all of his animosity and his hatred towards the defendant is all because of his own relationship with his son that's gone wrong or bad for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And he tears up that photo and
then
he's
he
defeated.
breaks down.
And then he says not guilty. And it's because he's realized that he's not angry with the defendant. He's angry with himself and what happened with his son. And that's why he was... And so it's a beautiful, powerful moment for the film, because all of those little side story bits all came full circle into the actual character piece that was the character study that this film is.
Yes. Yeah. They said, like, how do I even, like, I can.
But that is it. Like that. Like they've all decided now not guilty, and so they just all get up and walk out. That's it. Like it's like an anticlimax.
I thought it was a really beautiful ending for it, because like you said, all that emotion, everything broken down, all the heat in the room, all the tension. Like, we'd even had the rain come in at one point, and they'd had to close the windows, and that's when they realized the fan was there. And so it just, it just felt like a break in the heat when the jurors were actually starting to not guilty.
It was actually a
more over.
6-6. The tied vote was when the storm kind of started.
But now, as they're starting to walk out and the music is just playing really kind of gently, they're each getting their coats. They're not even saying like bye to each other. They don't even know each other like that. They're going to go out and just do this? And like you said, Henry Fonda just walks over, grabs the coat for Lee J. Cobb, and just takes it over, and they don't even say anything. He just puts the coat on him,
put it on.
just helps him out, walks him out, and they walk
like no
out of the
hard
room.
feelings, you know.
Yeah, like we're never going to see each other again after this. It's just jury duty. That's what it is. And he walks outside, and Henry Fonda walks down, and the old man comes walking up, and they say each other's names to each other, don't they?
Yeah, they introduce each other and then say farewell.
Farewell.
Off they go.
And off they go.
Interestingly, again, just to go on the technical side of the filmmaking here, is obviously as the films progressed from the wide shot to getting closer and closer and closer to the close-ups, apparently they used the widest lens possible for the final shot when they're coming out of the courthouse, just to emphasize the freedom. There's all this space.
I did think that actually. I was like, wow.
So it's a release for everyone that was in the film as well.
Yeah,
it's great. Ian, what were your favorite scenes from 12 Angry Men?
Oh man, like just how the entire back room sequence. I mean,
It was
just
96 minutes long. Ian.
well, 94 minutes of the entire movie I absolutely loved. I loved everything in this whole movie. My top favorite sequence of the movie has to be Ed Begley, you know, doing his racist tirade about why this kid should go to prison, and how every single one of the jurors just kind of gets up and just turns their back and just ignores him until he stops talking, and then he gives not guilty anyway because he realizes how wrong he was. I thought that was just, he played that off so amazingly. How he didn't get an Oscar for that, which just, I don't know. But I mean, the Oscars would have had to have given 12 Oscars out into this entire movie, I feel. I mean, Jack Warden as well. You know, Big Ben Headley from fucking Problem Child, Things to Do in Denver When You're Dead. Just he's kind of like the comedy of the entire room. He's kind of joking and kind of keeps the morale
until
up a bit.
I think it's juror 11 who really gives him a good talking to,
Yeah,
because
he's always
changes
taking
his
the
vote.
jokes. Yeah,
he changes his vote because he just wants to get to the baseball game, and it's juror 11 who's just like, you need to take this a little bit more seriously because there's somebody else's life on the line here that you have a decision in, and you are just talking about your ball game.
But that's it. But you did see the change in his face when he's just like,
realized actually,
I maybe need to
yeah, that's what I mean. There's some great character moments. Yeah.
Like you said, Lee J. Cobb playing the bad dad. My God, you know, he's on everybody's back throughout the entire movie until that point where he rips up that photo and then he realizes like how upset he is that he shouldn't have done that. I thought it was absolutely brilliant. Henry Fonda, fucking like
quality.
Like I could go on for hours, but Gary's got some points. So anyway.
Yeah, I got a few favorites, memorable moments. One of my first favorites is when they all sit down, and it's of course Henry Fonda who does the not guilty, and it's Ed Begley who turns and just goes, "There's always one." It's just like it's great. It's a little comedy moment. Yeah. It's actually the brief moment where you might actually like Ed Begley before you realize he's a worthless piece of shit. Yeah. I love the moment where Henry Fonda just reveals another knife, just donk, right into the table. It's like, oh, wait a minute, are you the killer?
Are you the killer?
Yeah, the thought races through your mind
just
very
opens
quickly.
Up his jacket and goes, look.
Yeah, it was a great little moment. I think my favorite sort of breakdown of evidence was the whole overlapping testimonies about the train going past and the old man hearing the noise above. Yeah. Apparently, whilst that train was going past, and the way they break that down, brilliant. And I also love the interrogating the other juror about his own memory and that one bead of sweat. Really, really good. Yeah. There is a line, I can't remember how it goes, but it's when juror 8, Henry Fonda, just says something about how if you're going to send someone to the electric chair, you'd think you'd want to be 100% on the evidence. So as soon as there is any doubt, no chair. And I can't remember what his exact line delivery is, but the way he says it, almost looking to the camera or just aside, it perfectly encompasses what he's about and what the whole film's going to be about. Great moment. Great line delivery.
Yeah.
You're talking about a matter of seconds. Nobody can be that accurate.
Well, I think testimony that could put a boy into the electric chair should be that accurate.
Another moment is when Cobb is like derailing himself, and he's like, "Oh, he's an old man. How can he be positive about anything that he's seen?" And but then he was also relying on that old man's testimony earlier, so it was a self-defeating argument. But what I love is that Joseph Sweeney, juror 9, the old man, is in the background of that shot, blurred. Yes. But he's in the background with a face like, "You what?" Like,
I got it. like, if I could walk over there, I'd have you, young
right?
boy.
Just that little moment. And that's what I like, is that because it's not really an ensemble. Like, all of these are brilliant character actors, but it's the fact that during those wide shots, all of the other actors are so well rehearsed that they feel like they're just doing their everyday thing in the background. Like, everybody is acting and reacting,
Yes.
even when the camera's not focused on them. If they don't have any line delivery, they are playing their parts still. And it makes watching everything in the background even more interesting as well. So just the background stuff, the setting.
Something that we didn't bring up, but I thought it was a great moment, was when they went into the bathroom and they had like this little conversation in the bathroom, as if to say, like, we're not taking this back out into the courtroom, but I can say
little
this,
conversation
we're
piece,
friends. But Henry Fonda's like, nah.
Because that's actually my other favorite scene.
Right.
It happens in the bathroom, and it's when I think it's the foreman who's with him in there. It might be the other guy. I can't remember.
Yeah.
And he's just like, isn't it funny that how you're convincing all of us of the not guilty verdict when what if he's actually guilty? And he taps him on the shoulder and walks out, and Fonda's just like, yeah, it's always going to be in the back of your mind if you're in this position. So it's a great like counterpoint, you know, and that's what this film is all about: conflicts and resolving those conflicts through conversation and discussion. But of course, it does lead to arguments, and because of the opposing personalities, it has those eruptions
and different perspectives as
Yes,
well. I
absolutely.
mean, we've got one guy who's from Europe, but he's living in America, and he's actually like, I'm not like you, but you know, I am like you.
I love how well mannered he is, and how he also corrects Ed Begley's English.
Yeah,
it's little moments. So good. And probably the helping him put his coat on towards the end, and then walking out and introducing themselves to each other before going their separate ways forever. Iain, do you recommend 12 Angry Men?
How do you recommend, you know, one of the greatest movies ever made, really? Like, it's up there. Like, you can say it's, you know, all talk, no action, and you could say that it's just a bunch of guys just, you know, talking nonsense. But when you sit down and when you actually listen to it and pay attention to the film, and it's there's not a lot to distract you. It's 12 guys in a room discussing a court case. And like Gary said at the start, you know, most of the time with courtroom movies or dramas, you know, we don't see this part. It's the actors are, you know, doing their thing and the juries just go, yeah, whatever. These guys sell us the idea that being on a jury is really, really important, and you've got to know, really, really know what you're doing, or somebody's going to pay the price of their life. Henry Fonda, oh my God, it's just amazing. And I could list every single one of the 11 other jurors as how amazing they are. But in fairness, they've got to keep up with him. You know, Henry Fonda at this stage was like the shit. And these guys wanted to keep up with him, and he wanted them to keep up with him as well. The camera work is amazing, the editing's amazing, the music's amazing, the acting's amazing, the script is amazing. I don't really say that a lot, but when I do, you should watch it.
Oh, hell yeah. I'm also going to be highly recommending 12 Angry Men. This is a must-watch. It's a timeless classic that's as good now as it ever was. It's top-tier filmmaking with a tight, perfect script and an incredible cast of veteran actors. The script by Reginald Rose is filled with sharp and layered dialogue that's incisive and fully keeps you invested and engaged with the unfolding arguments. Each juror is given enough time and moments to let us know who they are through conversation that's interesting and lends itself to the greater themes of the film, into human nature and our own biases. It's a brilliant script. The performances were all excellent, with Henry Fonda calmingly and emotionlessly setting the stage for some of the more expressive outbursts from Lee J. Cobb and Ed Begley, the film's antagonists. Each actor knew their role well, and even if not central to the frame, they were interesting to watch. The filmmaking was also so simple but so effective. The rising claustrophobia from the encroaching camera angles, the shifting elevation and the long early takes with little editing, it was so seamless you might not notice, and that is masterful work. This is a must-watch. It's really entertaining, it's very well made, and one of the best films ever. It explodes like 12 sticks of dynamite. Thanks for watching Off the Shelf Reviews.
That's a damn stupid thing to do.